I am honored to come to you before you today, this morning, to celebrate both the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is an important one, not because you just get a day off. It is an important day because it is a day of service. So I'm not quite sure if that's something that has been discussed in your classes, but it is known as a day of service, a day where people, companies go out into the community and actually do work that impacts the community for the better. So doing things that are worthwhile for the community. All I want you to know about, as far as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, if you don't take anything away from this book, but what I'm about to say, please do. Martin Luther King Jr. is but one figure in Black history. A very powerful figure, a figure that I really hold near and dear. But Black history is American history, and Black history needs to be discussed and studied, but the work and carrying out the work of Dr. King is our personal responsibility. So each and every one of you, under the sound of my voice, and those of you who will listen to it later, it is super important, it is imperative that we take this on as a mantra and a mantle for ourselves, each and every one of us, not just someone like me that you heard diversity, equity, inclusion is what I do and who I am. It cannot be relegated to one day or even month that we have next month. This is your community. Your school is your community, your family is your community, the city of Lowell is your community. And if you want your community to be stronger, to be more loving, to be more welcoming, to be more vibrant, to just be better, you have to be willing to put in the time, the work, and you have to be willing to hold accountable the members of your community. Now, community is the second word that I want you to hold on to. What was the first word? Equity. Equity, excellent, okay. We're gonna come back to those, remember. Now, one of the most famous speeches that people will quote from Dr. King is the I Have a Dream speech, which is a fantastic speech delivered on August 28th of 1963 on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. It is long, like most of his speeches, so I will not give you the entirety of it, but when you do have the time, I implore you to read it. But I will give you this one quote, and it says, "When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was to promise that all men, yes, Black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Now, hearing the language of Dr. King can be a little bit intimidating, I'm not gonna lie. Even as a public speaker myself, I think, man, if I could just get a little bit of the dynamic way that he was able to deliver, that would be fantastic. But what I want you to hone in on is Dr. King was a young man. He died when he was killed when he was 39 years old. So in his 39 years of life, the impact that Dr. King had on his community, this country, and the world cannot be measured. Does anybody know what age he was when he went to college? He was 15 years old. So if you're 15 in this room right now, imagine yourself stepping into Morehouse College, which is an HBCU, historically Black college and university in Atlanta, at 15. At 17 years old, he wrote a letter stating to the editor, stating that all people deserve basic human rights. Imagine being 17 years old and feeling confident in what you needed to say, needing so much to get something across that at 17 years old, you shared that. At 26 years old, he had his doctorate. Okay, so that's, for those of you who are interested in going that pathway, it's a long road. We have some people with doctorates in here. It's a long pathway. He finished it in 4 years. In addition to that, I want you to understand that when he was 26, the same year that he turned 26 years old, was when Rosa Parks decided not to give up her seat on that bus. The same time frame. So he's just graduating from school, and now all of a sudden, he's uplifted into this role as a civil rights leader. One thing that you might also not know about Dr. King is his assassination, which ended his life, was not the first assassination attempt against his life. When he was writing, he wrote his first book, he was in New York City, signing autographs, and a woman walks up to him and says, "Are you Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?" And he says, "Yes," and she stabs him. Most people don't know that. What they had said about that particular attempt on his life is that if he had sneezed, he would have died. So imagine all the great work that we would never be able to take advantage of, all the amazing words of inspiration that we would have never heard, all for what? One sneeze. He won the Nobel Peace Prize, kept pushing freedom, and unfortunately was assassinated on April 4th, 1968, the day after giving what is one of his most famous speeches, the Mountaintop Speech. And I would love to give you all these, but I'm trying to be considerate of the time. So please look up these speeches, and for the educators in the room, please give them direction to how to find this great information. I want you to also remember that there are times in your life that you may be the first. Are there any of you in the room right now that are going to be the first people in your family that go to college? Okay, so I see several hands going up. That's an awesome thing, right? Imagine this man being thrown into this position, being really the first person that was the headliner of the civil rights movement. And I want you to understand there were so many people working alongside him. He did not do this in a bubble. He did not do this alone. But sometimes you're going to be the first, and that road can feel lonely. It can feel challenging. But what I want you to do is do the same thing he did. Have a core group of people that you can hold on to, that really have your back. Not these fake people, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Real people that you can tap into that have your back when it comes to it. Have those people and they will help you along the way. A famous quote of his when he addressed a college in Spelman College, was, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." So the next word I want you to hold on to is moving. So what words do we have so far? Equity, community, and moving, okay? Now there are things in your life that can seemingly bring you down to your knees. I'm gonna actually tell you about an experience that happened to me when I was running for school committee the first time. And you know, the reality of it was, and I did not win the second time, that's why I'm saying the first time. Okay, so I won the first time, lost the second time. But what I want you to hold on to is this story, and why it is important to have a good team around you, and to also have confidence in what you bring to the table. So what happened was I was at the McDonald's on Varnum and Mammoth. Does anybody know where that is? Okay. So I was standing there and I was doing what's known as visibility. So visibility is when you probably have seen people holding their signs and people honk at them or ignore them or say shut up or whatever else they might say, right? So I was up there holding my signs with my sister actually, and a whole bunch of people were waving and saying, "Go Stacey, we support you." So it was fantastic. Out of nowhere, I'm holding my sign and this person screams at me, "Go home, N-word." And I'm literally just taken aback. I'm holding signs, running for office, respecting the community. People knew me before I was running, so respected, but this affront, this attack, assault happened to me not far from where I live. So I'm sitting there, my sister asked me if, you know, what she heard was what she really heard, and I said yes, unfortunately. What I want you to understand is that did not make me not run. As a matter of fact, it made me want to run harder. But the reality of it is this. You may have things you want to do, and not everybody understands them. They may not get it. Don't let anybody take away what you know is for you, what you know you're supposed to do. And the thing is, the idea of equity or shared power for some people is very scary. They will hold onto their power as hard as they potentially can. And Dr. King fought against that. He said we should all share the power. We should share the experience. We should share the wealth. Everybody should be able to live in a home. Everybody should be able to work. As Mr. Fiato said, He talked about love driving out darkness, right? So I had to when I say I had to reach down deep, I'm not gonna lie, my first reaction was not a positive one, right? But I had to reach down deep and find some measure of compassion. Because what makes a person yell such crazy things to someone they don't even know? So what I will say is this, you have to recognize that sometimes in a situation, because you're the first, you have to make a decision. Do I want to not do it because it's too hard? Because I'm going to tell you, it was hard. I had people that wouldn't open the door for me, people that would look out, see me, and say no. I had people that did what I just told you they did. But I knew that if I did not push, then I would not disrupt the system. And that's what Dr. King was about. He knew that he was in danger. He knew people wanted to end his life. He was aware of it. People told him. But he still recognized that he needed to push regardless. And I tell people all the time, my campaign was 3 people. 3 people. And we won. In a city that had never seen a black woman run for office, or, well, they did see one, and that was a whole other story. Birdie Bell Mabry, if you don't know, look that up too. But I was the first one to be able to break that ceiling, and I'm hoping that some of you are willing to take on that mantle and push it forward. We were called the little engine that did, is what I call us. I will say this, in trying to be positive, sometimes we don't talk about what's real. Racism exists, hatred is real, but we have to figure out how we exist with it. How do we continue to drive it out? How do we continue to push it out? Unfortunately, there are people that wish we could just push past it and pretend it doesn't exist, but that doesn't help to eliminate it. We have to see it for what it is, make the decision to push it out, and that is done by love, and it's done through work. Fighting for freedom is not easy. Dr. King was arrested nearly 30 times, and I'm not telling any of you to get arrested to do this work, by the way, okay? But he was arrested nearly 30 times, all for peaceful reasons. And he penned this letter from a Birmingham jail, which is one of the most famous civil rights letters ever written. And I will, again, only give you a little snippet because it's also really long. Moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of the connectedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned with what happens in Birmingham. So that means I cannot be sitting in Pawtucketville and not care what's happening in Centerville or South Lowell, right? That doesn't work. I need to be caring about everybody in my community. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The next word is justice. So what does that mean, Stacey? That means that we're all connected. And if we say we care about this country, about one another, about good, we cannot pretend we don't see things that are unjust. How many of you have ever seen a sibling or a friend bullied? Okay, because I definitely have, right? So you've seen that happen. Did you just stand there and say, oh well, stinks to be you? No, you didn't. More often than not, you got that bully off that person's back. That's exactly what Dr. King was saying about what was happening. He needed people, black people were doing the work, but he needed to tap into our Asian brothers and sisters, our white brothers and sisters, our Latino brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters, and pull everybody into the fight. Because alone, it was not possible. We needed everyone. You need everyone. May 25th, 2020, a horrible thing happened in this country. Does anybody know what that is? If I say the name George Floyd, does that ring a bell? Okay. So George Floyd was murdered May 25th, 2020. The thing about this event that stands out, because quite frankly, incidents like that have been happening. But the thing that was so powerful about this particular incident is people in one unified voice said, no more. Enough is enough. Everybody, we had everybody, and I mean in other countries, were saying, in this country, enough was enough. And the reality of it was, they were saying, that all the things that Dr. King was fighting for, diversity, equity, inclusion, those things mattered. They were saying in one voice that along with everybody else, that Black lives too mattered. Every voice mattered, but the reason why that was brought up was because it didn't seem like they mattered. So that was that replication, the Black Lives Matter movement, was such a replication of what Dr. King had been doing, trying to safeguard DEI policies. Now, if you've been paying attention, there's a very big effort to eliminate DEI in general. Policies that were set to safeguard housing, the education receiving, all of the fair access to employment. There's a real effort to say diversity, equity, inclusion do not matter. That is a lie. They matter. They're saying we should be colorblind. That is not true. I should be able to look at my Asian brother and sister and say, you're beautiful. I should be able to look at my white brother and sister and say, you're beautiful. And see the difference, acknowledge it, and not try to pretend it doesn't exist. Inclusion doesn't mean I get rid of. It means everyone is included, everyone is accepted, everyone is seen, everyone has a voice. And that is what Dr. King fought for. And for years, those things were protected. And unfortunately, right now, we're going under a very concerted effort. You may have seen companies that are no longer doing DEI work. You're seeing places that said that they really wanted to do it when George Floyd was murdered, and now all of a sudden they're like, well, we don't want to do that anymore. It's not good. It's bad. It is not bad. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And if they look at statistics, if they just want to look at that, you'll see statistically it's proven that it's important. So just to wrap up, because I know that I'm running a little bit over time and I'm just trying to be respectful. And I will make, if anybody would like the full speech available, I will make it available and you guys can send it out to whomever. But what I want you to recognize and take away is this. It is really important that the person that you are is seen. It is imperative that you are aware that the person that you are is enough as you are. One of the things, I'm just trying to get to this one part. If you have ever stopped a bully because they were being mean to someone for no reason, if you have ever encouraged a friend of yours or a family member about getting their education, if you've done any of those things, then there is a king in you, a leader, a change maker, a disruptor, a fighter for justice is in you. Royalty is within you. Regardless of the depth of your skin, the texture of your hair, you have power and you have value. Walk into each room with, and it doesn't matter who's there. Even with folks that don't think you belong there, with your shoulders back and your head held high because you deserve to be in every single room that you enter. I will leave you with this challenge. First, I want you to get into good trouble, and that means, as the late John Lewis said, register to vote. If you're 18 years old, you should be registered to vote. If you have friends and family members that are 18 years old, make sure that they're registered to vote. It's super important. Go to city council meetings, go to school committee meetings, attend neighborhood meetings, write for your local newspaper. Many things you can do for your voice to be heard. And when I say your voice, I don't mean somebody else, I mean your voice. Second, I want you to remember the words I highlighted, which are equity, community, moving, and justice. Without work behind them, they are just words. And then lastly, don't allow, and this is from Dr. King himself, do not allow anybody to make you feel that you're nobody, that you have worth, and that your life has ultimate significance. Thank you very much, and I hope that my words landed in a good place in your heart. Give yourself grace, and I look forward to seeing some of you on the campaign trail. Bye.